All right, so get this. Today, we are doing a deep dive into this story. It's got some serious twists and turns. We're going to be exploring a parable by Rabbi נחman of Breslov.
Okay.
And a parable, is like one of those short stories, allegorical, right?
Right.
That's supposed to teach you something.
Okay.
Think journeys, unexpected discoveries. There's even a magical object.
Oh, wow.
There's a battle between good and evil.
Oh, cool.
But ultimately, the whole thing is about the power of faith and doing the right thing.
I like those kinds of stories. They really do. They stick with you, don't they?
They really do.
Those ones that work on those multiple levels.
Yes.
Often, using simple language, familiar scenarios to get you thinking about those bigger questions.
Yeah, exactly. We will be looking at the text, Kusel Harakin,
Okay.
which is, for those of you who don't read Hebrew, means a story from the manuscript Rabbi נחman of Breslov.
Got it.
So let's jump right in. This parable, it starts with this wise man. Okay, he's on his deathbed, and he's giving his sons some final wisdom. He tells them that no matter what else they do in life, they have to make sure to water trees.
That sounds simple enough, but what do you think that means symbolically? Could it be hinting at those things that we have to nurture and prioritize, in our lives, even when other things get in the way?
Totally. One of his sons, he can't walk,
Okay.
uses his inheritance to start this business,
Okay.
determined to succeed,
Mm-hmm.
hires a wagon driver and a friend to travel with him to Leipzig to trade.
It's interesting that even with this disability, he's not letting it define him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's resourceful, focused on his goals. But of course, this wouldn't be a very interesting story if there wasn't some conflict, right?
Absolute. As they're traveling through the forest, guess what they run into?
Bandits.
You got it. A whole band of robbers. And to make it even more intriguing, the parable takes us back in time.
Okay.
So we can see how this band was formed.
So get a little backstory.
Yeah. A little bit of a backstory here. It turns out there was this guy, very crafty,
Okay.
went around recruiting talented people, promising them work. But instead of giving them honest jobs, he leads them down this dark path, turns them into this band of robbers. Makes you wonder, are things always what they seem? Who can we really trust?
Yeah, right. These themes of deception, hidden motives, it's powerful. It reminds me of how easy it is to be swayed by appearances, to misjudge situations.
Yeah.
Even find yourself, going down this path you never intended to go down.
I totally see what you mean.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for our protagonists, these robbers, they're not just a thought experiment.
Right.
They take everything. Okay. They leave him with nothing but the clothes on his back,
Oh, wow.
stranded in the middle of the forest. He is so desperate for food that he starts eating grass.
Wow. That really drives home the point about desperation, resilience. Like,
Yeah.
what would you do to survive, if you were pushed to that extreme?
I can't even imagine. But just when things seem completely hopeless, he finds something really amazing under a tree root. It's a magical stone, okay? It's called the kares, which means silence in Hebrew.
Huh. Silence. I wonder why Rabbi נחman chose that name. Maybe it suggests that true power lies in stillness, like in that unseen realm. Or maybe it's connected to the son's disability and the inner strength he had to find to overcome it.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Anyway, he figures out that one side of this stone can transport him
Okay.
to this crazy place. Okay, it's this fantastical place where the sun and the moon are actually having a conversation.
Whoa, now that's an image that sparks the imagination. What are they saying to each other, though? What are their secrets?
Well, the sun is upset
Okay.
because it's drying up this special tree with all sorts of healing and beneficial properties.
Yeah.
And the moon is complaining that demons are stealing its strength.
So we have this contrast going on here between forces that sustain life and forces that are trying to destroy it. And our son, he's caught right in the middle, witnessing this cosmic struggle.
He is. And he's not just passively observing, okay. He figures out that the other side of this stone can take him to this crossroads.
Right?
Where the dust itself holds power.
Really?
Yeah. There are separate paths for the righteous, the wicked, and even the insane.
Dust. That's so unexpected. What do you think that symbolizes?
I'm not entirely sure yet.
Okay.
But it seems like Rabbi נחman is suggesting that strength can be found in the most unexpected places. Maybe he's also hinting that there are different types of strength. Like what kind of strength comes from being righteous as opposed to being wicked or even insane.
That is really interesting. I wonder if those paths and their corresponding dust Will they play a role in the son's journey moving forward?
We'll have to see. And I'm definitely curious to find out how he uses this dust he gathers to deal with those robbers who left him stranded. Okay, so where we left off, our resourceful son has all this mystical dust from these different paths, the righteous, the wicked, the insane, and he is headed back to that forest.
Right.
He's become this unlikely warrior,
It's true.
armed with something so ordinary but infused with all this hidden power.
It makes you think about how often we overlook the potential of things, that we consider ordinary or even worthless. Maybe Rabbi נחman is trying to, challenge us to look deeper, see the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Yeah, I'm with you there. But does he use this dust to, get revenge on the robbers?
Well, yeah, he does confront them, and he uses his cunning and the different types of dust to basically turn them against each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's actually a pretty intense scene. They all, they meet like a pretty grim end.
Whoa. Okay. I guess you could say that he got his justice.
Right.
But it sounds pretty dark. I mean, does the parable suggest that kind of revenge is okay?
That's a really good question, and I think it's open to interpretation. But what's interesting is that the leader of the robbers, the one that survives this whole crazy chaos, he's exposed to the dust from the path of the righteous. And guess what? He ends up repenting for his crimes.
Okay, so even amidst this violence and revenge, there's this glimmer of redemption.
Right.
It's like even those who have committed horrible acts, they still have that potential to change.
Exactly. And remember that story within the story about the wise man who protected his family from demons by forming a protective circle?
Oh, yeah. That one, that seemed to hint at where our protagonist comes from.
Right. Well, it turns out that story, it also explains the origins of the dust.
Oh.
And it's revealed that the wise man chose to rely on faith rather than magic, even though he had this book that detailed, all the genealogies of the demons.
Oh.
Which is, it's a pretty powerful tool. He could have easily used it for his own benefit, force the demons to do what he wanted.
Right. Talk about a moral dilemma.
Yeah. But instead, he emphasized how important it was to put your trust in God, not in supernatural abilities or trying to manipulate things. And his descendants, they inherited this book and they faced similar temptations.
So this choice between faith and magical power, that's a struggle that runs through generations, doesn't it?
Yeah. And one descendant who is trying to provide for his daughters, he's so conflicted about whether or not he should use the book's power, he actually goes to his grandfather's grave to ask for guidance.
I can relate to that. It's like when you're facing this tough decision and you wish you could just ask someone you really respect for advice, like someone who has already been through it.
Right. And what's really beautiful is that the grandfather, even though he's dead, he offers this wisdom. He essentially tells his descendant to have faith, God will provide.
Okay. I mean, that's inspiring and all, but it's kind of vague, right? What happens to the daughters? Does he find a way to support them without resorting to this book?
That part is left unsaid, which I think is actually very thought-provoking. Maybe it's not so much about the specific outcome, but more about this inner struggle and choosing to align yourself with faith, even when it's hard.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's about those principles that you choose to live by. But it's wild. The parable doesn't stop there. The king of the country falls ill, okay? And the doctors can't figure out how to cure him.
Oh, I bet this is where things get interesting. What happens next?
Okay, so the king decrees that the entire Jewish community has to pray for his recovery.
Okay.
And our descendant, the one still grappling with the book, his faith is put to the test.
Right. So we're back to this theme of faith versus magic. But this time, it's happening on a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
It's not just about this one family. It's about a whole community and the king himself.
Exactly. And you're not going to believe this, but the demon king of all beings, he notices that our descendant has remained faithful.
Really?
Especially knowing that he has the power to control them.
So the demon king is, impressed by this guy's commitment to God.
Yeah. It's like he sees something admirable in his unwavering belief, even though it's bad for him. And get this, the demon king decides to help.
Okay, this is going to sound crazy, but does he, perform some demonic miracle to cure the king?
Not quite. It's a little more subtle than that. The demon king makes this cloud form over the city,
Okay.
which changes the climate.
Mm-hmm.
Just enough to make the previous medical treatments, suddenly start working.
Wow. That's incredible. So the descendant's faith, even though he wasn't, actively using any magic, it still had this positive impact on everything.
Right. And the best part is the descendant has no idea what even happened. He just keeps living his life, trusting in God. It's like a reminder that even when we don't see it, our choices and our faith can have these ripple effects, impacting others in huge ways.
Makes me wonder, are there things happening in our own lives that we're completely unaware of? Things that our actions or beliefs have set in motion?
That's a deep thought. But wait, there's another twist. Do you remember the demon whose son was punished by the magician? The one that led to this whole cloud situation with the king?
Yeah, the one who was furious.
Yes. He is furious, and he wants revenge. So he orders his whole demon family to ambush the magician.
Uh-oh.
But thankfully, someone tips the magician off about the plan.
Oh, man, this is intense. What does he do?
So he knows that he can't fight off a whole demon family on his own, so he calls in reinforcements.
Right. Nix them.
Other magicians who specialize in specific types of demons. Talk about having the right connections, right?
Yeah. So it's like a magic battle is about to go down.
It gets even crazier than that.
Yeah.
The demon, he's so enraged that his plan was foiled that he stirs up this rebellion among all the demon kings.
Wow.
It's all-out war in the demon realm,
Yikes.
leading to famine, disease, total chaos.
Talk about unintended consequences. It's like this cautionary tale, even in the supernatural world, about how destructive revenge and ambition can be.
And amidst all this chaos, guess what happens to that tree? You know, the one that the demon king was trying to uproot. The one that protected humanity from their influence.
I'm on the edge of my seat. Did they destroy it?
Okay, so with all this craziness and upheaval caused by the war, the ground collapses, okay, and the tree is finally watered.
Wait, are you serious? The very thing they were trying to prevent, they caused it.
It's pretty wild, right? Like cosmic irony or something.
Yeah.
And with this tree finally getting all this nourishment, its power becomes unstoppable. The demons, they're completely obliterated, wiped out as if they never existed.
So in the end, it wasn't magic or cleverness or even revenge that was the most powerful, but the simple act of watering this tree. It's like this profound symbol of how sometimes the most powerful things are rooted in basic acts of care.
And the parable wraps things up, you know, by referencing Psalm 1, which talks about the different paths of the righteous and the wicked.
Wow, bringing us full circle to that crossroads where he gathered that dust, each type representing a different way of being, a different kind of strength.
It's like Rabbi נחman is saying, hey, what path are you on? Are you watering those things that really matter?
Right. Those things that actually nourish our souls and make the world a better place.
Right. Are we neglecting them, getting caught up in all this stuff that ultimately leads to destruction and just emptiness?
Yeah. It's a lot to think about.
These are some big questions, but they're definitely worth thinking about. This parable, it's so much more than just a story. It's an invitation to really look at our lives, our choices, and what we value.
You know, I'm really struck by how this parable uses something so simple, like watering a tree, and makes it into something so powerful.
It really does.
It makes you stop and think about all those little things we just kind of overlook. You know, those small acts that can have a big impact.
That's so true. And Rabbi נחman, he was really good at weaving those layers of meaning into his stories. And it's fascinating how the son's whole journey reflects that same idea. You know, he starts with this physical limitation, but he doesn't let it define him.
He is resourceful, plans ahead. Even when he's, you know, robbed and left with nothing, he still finds a way to change things.
He doesn't just react to what's going on. He's observing, he's thinking strategically, and he takes action. I mean, that's something we can all learn from.
Definitely. And it's not just about, you know, physical strength or being clever.
Yeah.
Remember the different types of dust that he collected?
Yeah.
The dust of the righteous, the wicked, the insane. He was so intrigued by them, curious about how they worked. And in the end, that curiosity helped him, you know, get through some pretty tough situations.
It's like how important it is to just stay curious.
Yeah.
To look at things from different angles and not be afraid of things that are a little unusual.
Right.
Sometimes the answers come from the things we least expect.
And we can't forget that idea of faith that weaves through the whole parable.
Right.
It's not, you know, just this passive thing. It's this active force that guides his choices, even when he's tempted to just use magic or try to manipulate things.
Yeah, that choice between faith and magical power, that's a real struggle even today.
Oh, yeah?
Like, how often are we tempted to take the easy way out, to get what we want by manipulating things, instead of just trusting that there's a bigger plan?
All the time. It's so easy to fall into that trap. But what's interesting is that even when the descendant wasn't actively using any magic, his faith still had this, like, ripple effect, changing things in ways he could never have imagined.
Right.
It makes you think about the impact that our own beliefs and actions might be having on the world, even in tiny ways.
It's like when you do something kind for someone or you stand up for what you believe in, and you might never really know how far that reaches.
Yeah.
It's humbling and empowering at the same time.
Totally. And if we bring this back to that idea of watering trees, maybe Rabbi Nachman is telling us to think about the things that we are putting our energy into. Are we taking care of those relationships, those passions, the things that really matter to us and make the world a better place?
It's like that saying, you reap what you sow. But maybe it's not just about stuff, but about those good qualities inside us. Those acts of kindness and courage and faith that make us who we are and shape the impact we have.
I love that. You said that beautifully. And although this parable is all about faith and those big spiritual questions, I think the message is for everyone. It's about realizing that we all have this power to make a difference, even when things are crazy and uncertain.
And that sometimes the biggest changes happen through the smallest things, like just watering a tree. It reminds us that even when things are complicated, there's always hope and possibility just waiting for us to nurture it.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Rabbi Nachman's parable, here's something to think about. What trees are you forgetting to water in your own life? What's that small act of kindness, of courage, of faith that you could do today that might make a difference, maybe for you or maybe for someone else? And just maybe it'll ripple out and help create a brighter future.
That's something worth reflecting on.